right, super excited to be here tonight, and I thought I'd take our time together to just share the RateHub story. Something that's unique about RateHub is we actually bootstrapped our way to where we are today. So we started out with about $100,000 in investment, and we've grown to $10 million in revenue. And so along the way, that made for some really interesting stories. So I'm going to share those with you. I wanted to take you back to where the story of RateHub began. So in 2010, I escaped to Hawaii. I was leaving a job in management consulting and trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And really early into the journey, I realized it was all about starting a business, and a real business. And so in order to keep my costs on the trip low, I had to get creative. So I actually bought a van when I was there and started a little Uber service. I'd shuttle people back and forth to the airport and earn money on the side. And I got a job as a receptionist at the Banana Bungalow Hostel in Maui. And this is actually a picture of the hostel manager, so you can get a sense of kind of the vibe there. It was pretty fun. So not a picture taken in Hawaii, but my classmate and friend James, while I was in Hawaii, gave me a call on Skype. And he put a really interesting idea in my ear. So he was working at a mortgage brokerage and spending about $20,000 a month buying online mortgage leads. But the interesting thing was he was actually willing to buy a lot more. There just wasn't anywhere to get these really high quality leads. So we put our heads together and said, you know, if we started a mortgage rate comparison website, we'd be able to produce leads, sell them to his brokerage, and then others in Canada. So before I hit the beach each day at the Banana Bungalow Hostel in Maui, I pulled together the first business plan for what we called at the time Canada Rate Saver. And if you take a look at my first set of financial projections, they leave a little bit to be desired. So our 5-year plan had us hitting $300,000 in revenue, and our total salary at that time was going to be $67,000. So I definitely thought that this was going to be, you know, a sole proprietor lifestyle business, and things definitely changed. So despite those modest projections, I was able to convince James to come on board. We co-founded the business, changed the name to RateHub, ditched the beer, and cleaned ourselves up. And we each invested $25,000 to get started, and that was 100% of my savings at the time, and it seemed like, you know, a huge, huge amount. And we also convinced 2 other people to come on board, and that gave us our total $100,000 of investment. And so that wasn't a lot. So we really, in those early days, you know, we had that fixed initial investment, and we had to get really creative when it came to saving money. So what some people don't realize about RateHub is we actually ran the business for the first 5 years out of my home at the time. And things started to get pretty crowded when there were about 13 of us all jam-packed into this townhouse at Yonge and Balliol. And we would head out for lunch, and the neighbor's son next door would pop out, and his famous line was, "Wow, miss, you live with a lot of people." And we would always laugh, but just say, like, please don't tell your parents or our landlord. But back then, we would essentially do anything to save $100. And another notable story that we all laugh about, we needed a new printer in the office. And most companies would have gone out to Staples and bought a new printer. It's, you know, $100, $200, but not us. Instead, we found a contest sponsored by HP, and essentially, if you produced a submission that highlighted the features of this new printer and you did the best job, you'd win this printer for free. So we decided to go all out on this submission. We recruited a cheerleading team, we made a video, and we were able to find it on YouTube. So that last shot was definitely me, and we definitely won that printer. So we obviously had so much fun in the beginning, and I think because we had so much hustle, we had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs along the way. But by far, I think the most important thing we did in that time was focus on customer acquisition. And because we didn't have a lot of funding behind us, we had to figure out how to find our customers profitably. And so this is a picture of how our traffic grew from 2010 to 2016. We started it out in that first 6 months of being live with about 30,000 visitors, and we grew it and hit 10 million visitors in 2016. The best part about this is today we acquire 90% of our traffic for free. So we really focused on things like search engine optimization, building partnerships, and building our brand in the media to do it in a scalable, profitable way. Our revenue growth also followed that traffic. So if you remember back to my initial financial projections, our 5-year plan had us at 300,000, but we definitely surpassed those expectations. So in 2014, we passed that $1.5 million mark, and that was a huge cause for celebration amongst the RateHub team. But at that point, we found ourselves asking, what was going to come next? Where was our next explosive growth going to come from? And James had another great idea. So he'd been still working in the mortgage brokerage space and realized that if we built out a team in-house and sold, instead of just selling leads, also helped close some of those mortgages, we'd be able to earn about 4 times the amount per user we were earning. And so we just had one problem. We had to go out and tell many of our customers that we were going to join them and compete against them. And so we picked up the phone, we gave them a call, and things were going well until the industry found out about it. And there's a big blog in the space called Mortgage Broker News, and they decided to launch a poll and ask brokers, how many people are going to stop using RateHub given the fact that they're going to compete against you? And we only had about 50 brokers at the time, but somehow 250 people responded to this poll, and the majority said they were all going to leave. There was another article where a broker was quoted as saying, "We created the beast, and now the beast has turned on us." And it was all getting super dramatic, but I think, at the time, we just stayed really calm. We sorted our customer list from highest revenue to lowest revenue. We picked up the phone. We explained exactly what we were going to do. We made a commitment to be as transparent as possible. And in the end, we only lost 1 of those 50 customers. And the strategy ended up working because from 2014 to 2016, we grew in revenue, and last year came really close to hitting a huge goal for us, which was $10 million in revenue. And so after hitting that goal, we again found ourselves stepping back and asking what was next, and that's what made us go into the Dragon's Den and pitch. It was a good time in the den. So we ended up getting a few really compelling offers, and we pitched them originally about halfway through 2016, and I think as you saw from our numbers, revenue really started to take off, and we started getting a lot of interest from the venture community, and we ultimately realized that to really get an interesting valuation and get the kind of capital that we needed to propel the business, that it made more sense to raise in the venture and technology community. So we didn't end up taking the Dragons deal, but we're actively looking at other options, and I think we feel like we've achieved so much in the last 7.5 years, but really have so much potential ahead of us, and we really feel like our journey's just getting started. So hopefully that inspires some of you guys in your early bootstrapping, getting traction days. It takes a long time, but you really can see results if you stick with it. So thanks, guys.
Questions?
Hey, I really enjoyed that presentation, and I think it's a great concept. I guess the one thing that strikes me is I'm surprised that you didn't have or tell us a little bit about the competitive situation. I mean, were there a bunch of other sites doing the same thing that you're going up against? How did you beat them out? Or did you have a lead advantage? How long out of the gate? If you could talk about that.
So question around competition, and it's a great one. So when we started, there was a site called Rate Supermarket that had about 2 years in the industry, and so they'd made some traction, but the industry of financial product comparisons in Canada was still very immature. And the interesting thing was, if you looked at the US and UK, there were multiple publicly traded companies. So sites like LendingTree, Bankrate, Money Supermarket, and so the market conditions were great, relatively low competition in Canada, proven large businesses in external markets. And so when we got into the space, there was enough room for us. And really how we differentiated was focusing on product and education. So still today, consumers love our rate comparisons, but we get just as many, excited users talking about our calculators our beginner articles, and people just love, if you take a education-based marketing approach, you can really win over the consumer.
One more question.
How's the relationship been with your founders, and talk about some of the difficulties you guys have had as a founding group to get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's interesting. We've had a relatively easy ride, I think, because a lot of people, when they hear that, we've been partners for as long as we have and now we operate together, many partnerships fall apart. And I think that it's not that we haven't faced challenges in the road, it's just that we've always been able to put the business as the top priority, ourselves aside, have the difficult conversations, give each other time to heal, and then move on. So I think that, both people have to be as rational as possible and understand that it's not avoiding conflict that's going to make a healthy partnership, it's facing conflict and being able to move past it.